There is a possibility of obtaining energy not only in the form of light, but motive power and energy of any other form, in some moderate way from the medium. The time will be when this will be accomplished, and the time has come when one may utter such words before an enlightened audience without being considered a visionary. We're wheeling through endless space with an inconceivable speed. All around us, everything is spinning, everything is moving, everywhere is energy. There must be some way of availing ourselves of this energy more directly. Then, with the light obtained from the medium, with the power derived from it, with every form of energy obtained without effort from the store forever inexhaustible, humanity will advance with giant strides. From a lecture by Nikola Tesla, experiments with alternate currents of very high frequency and their application to methods of artificial illumination, delivered before the AIEE on May 20th, 1891.
How long are you going to freeload of me? Look at this bill. How are we gonna pay for it? And don't forget about daycare and the next credit payment. Great, now the power's out. What are we even paying for? Go out and earn some money.
A year ago, I got my first radiant on this exact circuit. I wound the removable coil, tested it, got static, but no additional gain. What should be the ratio of windings turns? How do I make all this static start working? That's the question. Wait, what about the grip on the horizontal device? There's resonance at 1.66 MHz, and it's absolutely unclear why that frequency is involved. I rewound a bunch of coil options with wires of different lengths, but the frequency capture still remained at 1.66 MHz. All other options with my KH schemes didn't work either. It seems it's not related to the KH though.
Natash, come on. I find it hard to believe in such science fiction. Look at our life more realistically. Where would these technologies come from?
Vera, don't jump to conclusions. Do you think that if the media aren't talking about something, it means this doesn't exist?
Do you really believe in conspiracy theories? That they don't let us live a full life by hiding technologies?
It's not that I believe in it. I know it, because I work in a patent office as part of my job and I've seen a lot. You can't imagine the amount of rejected patent applications. Those are patents that are not allowed to see the light of day because they contain technologies that go beyond the established limits. They keep us within these limits and deliberately slow down scientific progress, not allowing discoveries that could, for example, make all energy free. This is free energy, do you understand? We would already be living completely differently if these technologies were made public.
Natasha, but how do you know that those rejected patents really work? Did you check them?
Once in the 60s, the Japanese government approached us with an offer to sell them. A founder rejected applications. It would have been a profitable deal. They offered good money. You know what a commotion it caused in our Academy of Sciences? There was a categorical refusal, justified by the fact that it would cause great harm not only to our country, but to the whole world. Why do you think that is? After all, it is believed that the fund of rejected applications includes non-functional patterns that have no value.
Perhaps the reason for this strange operation of the scheme are related to the pulsation of the Earth's magnetic field. Or, as with Don Smith, each coordinate of the planet corresponds to its own resonant frequency, and it is individual depending on the location on the surface. I should take measurements at my friend's cottage outside of the city.
I'm willing to believe, but can you provide any evidence of existence, for example, of free energy?
Vera, of course. We're actually going to those people now who are closely studying FFGs. They will tell you a lot.
Stop. They're talking about free energy. Excuse me for interrupting. Do we have people in our city who are dealing with FFGs?
Yes, this topic is being studied in the Creative Society. I'm sorry, we're in a hurry. Here, take the business card, please. Call us when it's convenient to you. We'll tell you everything.
Thank you.
All the best to you.
Well, look who's here, and without guards. Good evening, Paul.
Hey Max, long time no see.
Paul, I've got a ticklish question for you. I remember your skepticism about our reports at the Institute. So please don't laugh and don't consider me a fantasist.
Come on, the most important thing in science is to understand the truth. What's your question?
Paul, do you think a perpetual motion machine is possible? Don't rush to answer right away. Ever since the Institute was disbanded and you left for the defense industry, I've been studying this topic for many years. I can tell you...
Max, don't let my ranks and regalia embarrass you. You know how hard it is to belong in academia, to play along with them, while observing the whole farce of academic science. Let me tell you a secret. Yes, what you are seeking is possible. And even more than that, such devices have long been known and studied in top-secret institutes. Can I count on this conversation staying between us?
You do know me for a long time.
All right. Once in my youth, I worked in a classified group of 5 specialists. The task assigned to us was to study a gravitational anomaly that arises from the overlap of a magnetic field with an electric field. It was a defense contract, as you understand, with almost unlimited funding.
Sometimes it seems to me that in the modern world, without the defense industry, science would immediately lose its stimulus for development.
So, the device was a huge copper coil, which excited a strong magnetic field around itself due to the current flowing through it. It was pulsating. The entire coil was covered by a second winding, to which a voltage of 100 kilovolts was applied. The principle was simple, but we were not at all prepared for what we were about to encounter. The occurrence of excess energy was not the most surprising thing about the operation of the device. The nightmare was hidden in the physical change of matter on some modulation modes. The anomaly zone emerged and disappeared unpredictably, and it was impossible to control it. Any objects that got in there changed their geometry. A steel channel would bend and tear into pieces, which would disappear without a trace into nowhere. Can you imagine what would happen to a person there? During the 8th month of experiments, we were never able to get control of it. The anomaly lived its own life, as if someone invisible controlled this destructive force. Thrust vectoring would appear in the zone, and its direction would change. It resembled breathing. The anomaly was pulling matter in and out. The course of time was changing. It slowed down and accelerated, and voices and visions of unfamiliar worlds and beings appeared in the minds of those present there.
I feel a chill down my spine.
Playing with the field modulation, we went too far in trying to tame this anomaly. One night, after working late, we were about to leave, but I asked the group to test one hunch by abruptly turning off the magnetic field. As a result, there was an accident. A burst of unknown nature hit us with an explosive wave. The upper winding was torn apart, the equipment was blown off the racks. We were thrown against the wall of the laboratory, and our ears were ringing as a result of the concussion. A fragment of porcelain insulation injured my collarbone, and my colleague lost his kneecap. After that, it was decided to close the project and dismantle the device. Eventually, we were not able to take control over that power. Our group was disbanded. Given the seriousness of the problem, we took a vow of silence for the rest of our lives, and we were forbidden to use the results in our scientific work.
Wow. You never told me you took part in this kind of research before.
You never asked, and I'm not in the habit of blabbing. The story didn't end there. That was just the beginning of an exciting journey that stretched over many years.
If these topics have been studied, then I don't get it. Why does no one know about this? Haven't there been any leaks? There are even no hints in the scientific literature. I can imagine what a breakthrough such research could make in our time, considering that science has run into a wall and needs new discoveries like air.
Young man, you are still too naive.
But how come, Paul? People suffer from exorbitant prices of energy resources, and especially in our time, cheap energy could save civilization. Look at what's going on in the world. Every day 8,000 children die of starvation, while with free energy we can grow unlimited food all year round. In fact, I have to look for part-time jobs to make ends meet. Gasoline has already doubled in price.
Do you think if humanity gets free energy, it will make it happy?
It sure will.
Don't jump to conclusions. We'll talk about it later. Oh, here we are. I've got you so baffled, and we didn't have time to discuss your question. Well, that's okay. We'll do it next time. See you. Oh, I almost forgot. Max, my car is in for repairs. Can you pick me up tomorrow?
Of course, Paul. Look forward to our meeting.
Excellent. See you tomorrow then.
Yes, see you tomorrow. Good night. What am I actually doing here? What does my circuit do? It excites the aether. Oh, I'm sick of this cliché. And this is all they talk about on the forums, but no one can see any results. Otherwise, they wouldn't be hanging out there. Make sense? It requires understanding, but it's exactly what we all lack. What's the matter? How do I get the energy right? Already tried a bunch of different pickup coils. No result. Maybe I should match the geometry and length of a winding to the wave resonance? At least that's what they wrote on the forum. I'm just sitting and randomly poking here, hoping it will work. This process is taking forever, just like watching a Santa Barbara series. And now I'm running out of wire in my inventory. And copper's gotten so pricey these days. I'm winding from whatever little scraps I can find. And should I even trust what they say on these forums? I could once again wind up all the wire I have and end up with nothing. Looks like without Paul's help I'll be stuck with this for years to come.
Hi, Max.
Paul, you have no idea how glad am I to see you again.
Well, tell me what's going on.
I can't wait to talk to you about the fuel-free generator I'm working on. One day, while doing experiments with a Tesla coil, I accidentally got into a strange mode, where I got a constant component. It was so strong that everything around the room started hissing, crackling and sparking. Positive charge was flowing everywhere, and it continued even after the power was turned off. You understand that this is inherently impossible, because we are dealing with a resonant transformer, and it can only work on oscillators. I lost my super expensive oscilloscope, and to make matters worse, my wife's laptop also fried, for which she gave me a rough-up. Where could such a powerful surge of static come from? I have only one theory: a grip of the medium.
Okay. What do you mean by a grip on the medium?
It's slang. It means excitement of the ether.
Oh, I've got a feeling you actually have no idea what you're talking about.
But why? I'm talking about ether. The medium is ether.
Max, you employ the concept of ether so casually, as if you know what it's all about. But you're not alone in your unawareness. Unfortunately, nowadays, only a few people have the right idea about ether. And this is quite understandable, because the ether was thrown out of science back in its infancy. Have you ever seen the real Mendeleev's periodic table?
What do you mean the real one? They teach it in school. Does it have anything to do with ether? And either way, Mendeleev was a chemist.
Actually, it has a lot to do with it. Until 1907, the table of Dmitry Ivanovich had a zero group and zero period. There was a zero element by which Mendeleev meant ether. Immediately after his death, a deliberate falsification of the periodic system of chemical elements was started, and the ether was simply eliminated. In doing so, the remaining elements of the zero group were moved to the end of the table to the right, and periods were introduced. Such a seemingly harmless manipulation was deliberate removal of the main methodological link in Mendeleev's discovery, the ether.
Who would want to do this?
The order to distort Mendeleev's immortal creation was given to Boris Menshutkin, the son of a close friend and comrade of Dmitry Ivanovich. This became a real betrayal. Without even slightest embarrassment, in the preface to the first falsified version of Mendeleev's periodic law, Boris Menshutkin stated that Mendeleev allegedly always opposed the special role of the universal ether in natural processes. In 1926, in his unprecedentedly cynical article, he wrote that Mendeleev was an opponent of the ether.
Dmitry Ivanovich Mendeleev revolutionized natural science in the 19th century and laid the foundation for chemical science for all subsequent times. This foundation became the periodic law of the chemical elements, which Dmitry Mendeleev based on ether. Since the 17th, the question has persistently bothered me: what is ether in chemical terms? It is closely related to the periodic table of the elements, which aroused my interest, but only now do I dare to talk about it, wrote Mendeleev in his work An Attempt at a Chemical Conception of Universal Aether, published in January 1903 in the journal Bulletin and Library of Self-Education. Why did element X disappear from Mendeleev's periodic table? Today, this is a matter of principle for us. The ecological catastrophe that humanity is experiencing today occurred as a result of the use of hydrocarbons as the main source of energy for modern civilization, while ether technologies would have opened up access to inexhaustible source of environmentally clean energy. Who benefited from this? Dmitry Mendeleev's periodic table of the chemical elements was first published in the spring of 1869. In it, the Russian chemist was able to group and arrange the knowledge about every chemical element in the form of a practical table. that is now familiar to every student. Unfortunately, not every country recognized Dmitry Ivanovich Mendeleev as the author of this table, and few know the most important secret of the scientist's discovery. On a page from the Principles of Chemistry, Mendeleev wrote a note by the symbol for the hydrogen that can be deciphered as follows: Ether is the lightest of all by millions of times. Apparently, ether was considered by Mendeleev to be the lightest chemical element. In the well-known Larousse Concise Encyclopedia of 1898, the classical definition of ether is given as a weightless, elastic liquid that fills space, penetrates all bodies, and is recognized by a physicist as the cause of light, heat, electricity, etc. This fact suggests that the concept of ether was widely known at that time, and in the 19th century its existence was not in doubt. When describing the Universal Aether, Mendeleev regarded it as an element that is ubiquitous and all-pervasive, incapable of chemical bonding. In his periodic table, he placed element X, ether, in the zero group and zero period as the lightest analog of inert gases. Dmitry Mendeleev didn't have all the knowledge that modern science has today. He was searching for ether in the world of matter, atoms and molecules. However, he understood very well that the problem of gravity and the problems of all energy cannot be considered solved without a real understanding of ether as a universal medium for transmitting energy over distances. Dmitry Ivanovich Mendeleev, Thoughts on Understanding Russia, 1906. The last time the authentic, non-distorted Mendeleev table came into the world was in 1906 in St. Petersburg, in the book The Principles of Chemistry, 8th edition. One may think that the world would embrace Mendeleev's discovery as the greatest breakthrough in science, opening up enormous prospects for humanity. Free energy would make it possible to reach a new levels of development in the early 20th century. But apparently, this perspective was not part of the plans of those who controlled hydrocarbons, held unlimited power and money. Perhaps jealousy and intrigue in scientific circles also played a significant role in the fact that immediately after the death of Dmitry Mendeleev in 1907, element X, or ether, was removed from the periodic table.
The fact is that in the version of the periodic system of elements, which is engraved on the Mendeleev monument, the right column of the noble gases has been moved to the left, so that it represents the zero column, and above the first row, where hydrogen, helium, etc. are placed in the classic form of the periodic table, there is a zero row, so that in the zero row and the zero column is placed the zero element, which he called Newtonium, and which is Mendeleev's name for the ether, the most important and fastest element, as he claimed. The key problem here is how, according to Bohr model of the atom, to explain the structure of the elements before hydrogen, because hydrogen is the first, because it has only one proton and one neutron in its nucleus. The next element, helium, has two, the lithium is three, etc., etc. Newtonium and next coronium, which are elements before hydrogen, do not fit into Bohr model, and they were simply expelled from today's version of periodic table. So ether does not exist in modern version of periodic table of elements.
The fact is that Dmitry Ivanovich Mendeleev believed that even the periodic law of chemical elements is only the approach to mastering the world ether. Mendeleev stormed the peaks trying to find the world ether and master it as a kind of energy tool. If you remember, he was not only engaged in chemistry, he was also engaged in metrology. He was the founder of metrology. And simultaneously, he was engaged in the development of the chemical industry, the production of kerosene and later gasoline, and oil refining. He believed that the oil refining and the most perfect system of weights and measures and the periodic system of elements are only a small part of the universe. But he wanted to reach the most important fundamental laws, including the laws of the world ether. This law of the world ether would have allowed him, among other things, to master such means of energy that will make the oil industry unnecessary, or at least subordinate it to itself.
After the removal of element X, there were almost 100 years of oblivion, and only in 2002 the genial Mendeleev table rose from the ashes, thanks to the publication of a dissertation in the scientific journal, Journal of Russian Physical Thought of the Russian Physical Society.
Max, you know, ether is such a fundamental link in all processes that without it, we wouldn't be even able to think and talk now. It's the framework of our world, and without it, any interactions would be impossible. But the ether itself is only the beginning. And beyond it, there is something much greater that supports its functioning. And that is the source of any energy which is transformed with the help of ether into the forms acceptable for our world. In fact, ether is only a mediator, although I must say it is quite greedy and voracious. Ether is not only endowed with the qualities of a sentient being, but it also constantly requires power. It intakes part of the energy transported through it for its services. You hear stories that ether is an infinite source of energy, but that's a lie, because the true boundless source is in the hands of the one who created and is controlling information, while ether is only a converter.
But how will these nuances about higher matter help me? It's unexpected to hear from you talking about what's beyond. It's not common among scientists. Maybe you'd better tell me what needs to be wound as a removable coil to get an additional gain. Maybe there are some magical frequencies to be tuned to?
With your approach, you will never see an FFG. Do you think about the connection between ether and what's beyond it for no reason?
Oh, may I object? There are many examples of different FFGs and successful replications on the internet. So, do all these people somehow interact with what's beyond? Is it magic or something?
No, of course not. But no one has a real FFG. Surprised?
What do you mean, no one?
I'll reveal a secret to you. What researchers consider as a free energy is not really free energy. Look at all the known types of generators. They share a common feature. There is not a single long-lasting prototype. One has its grounding that is breaking down, and every month they have to replace electrodes. Another has a semiconductor not living long enough due to the avalanche breakdown and crystals degrading. The third's winding wire composition changes, making it fragile and loses its characteristics, indicating the transformation of matter at the atomic level. The fourth has its ferrite core destroyed, which falls apart within 2 months of operation. The known prototypes of magnetic generators, such as quarrels, demonstrate a short life of the magnets. In some replicas, they lose magnetization after a few hours of operation, and this list can go on and on.
What a surprise! And I was wondering why inventors who have achieved results continue to improve their devices for years, as if they are not satisfied with something.
Many of these devices enable us to produce energy in a very cheap way. No arguing about that. Such energy is much cheaper than that produced by a power plant. However, this is not an FFG in the full sense of the word. These are now simply carefully concealed ways of converting matter into energy, unknown to the majority of the public, just like processes inside a nuclear reactor at an NPP, where grams of uranium are converted into heat according to well-known formula E equals mc squared. And such generators can't do without spurious emissions, sometimes of an unexplored nature. By the way, it is for this reason that many FFG inventors got a good deal of it and lost their health.
Yeah, so far we only know how to destroy. Even for the purpose of getting energy, we destroy matter. But to create something, a different level of knowledge is required, isn't it? And we don't have it.
The reason is the completely wrong approach. A true FFG requires, shall we say, permission from the higher realms of the non-material world. The source of energy is there. You know, when I was young, my approach to energy was purely mechanistic, just like yours. I perceived it as a thing that could be manipulated. It seemed to me that all I had to do was tweak it here, solder it there, wind it over there, so everything would work out and energy would flow. But facing the abyss when I broke my collarbone drastically changed my perception. At one point, it was as if something got switched in my head. We wanted to control it and we were shown our place, making it clear that we are just ants before the real intelligent force. You see?
Yes, but what about the injustice happening in the world? The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. The energy crisis has permeated all spheres of our existence. That's right, it's existence, not life. We are forced to merely survive, wasting ourselves on artificially created problems. Such injustice makes me want to hope.
I will help you, but only to the extent that I am myself allowed, and the rest is up to you. You're a smart guy. To get access to the real source of free energy, you will have to focus on your own spiritual development. And I am no help to you there. But as for making a simple converter of small power, it's doable. It will be more than enough for you and your family.
Paul, at least give me a hint, and I would be immensely grateful to you.
Let's apply it to the result you got. What did you get? You get a constant constituent, right? And this is a sign that you have opened a window into the next dimension. Simply put, you accidentally managed to excite the cells of the etheric grid, and they straightened out your impact with a response in the form of a static with a positive sign. That's why all the objects in your apartment started literally pouring out positive potential. You're lucky that the electronics burned only in your apartment. It could have burned at your neighbors and in the entire building as well. Some researchers faced this phenomenon a century ago. Tesla used to call it
A radiant.
I guess you could call it like that, but don't think the radiant itself gives you the boost you're looking for. Its appearance is just the beginning. Your coil will have to sound, in the literal sense of the word. Sound is one of the manifestations of ether.
Well, it's not an easy task. So how do I make it sound?
By modulating the input. Do you think Nikola Tesla invented rotating dischargers with the capacity to regulate the duration of the overlap for nothing? He mmade the entire planet sound when he picked the right modulation period of about 1/12 of a second.
This all reminds me of the longitudinal wave, which they discuss on the forums.
Right. It is one of the roots of Maxwell's equations, set aside under the influence of Hertz. When such a wave is excited, energy appears in the surrounding space, but you cannot harness it directly.
I've already figured that out. I tried it with a detachable coil, but it didn't work. But I can't get it. While there's more energy around, why can't you harness it? In my opinion, energy is either there or it's not.
Think bigger. A longitudinal wave is not a three-dimensional phenomenon. In your device, it takes the form of two vortices rotating in opposite direction. That's why nothing appears on the detachable coil. The vortices balance each other out. You know, everything in the world seeks balance.
Right. So this thing cannot be converted into usable energy by any known means.
Well, why not? Low inductive bifilar coil. But I'd like to warn you. At first, the processes in the device build up slowly, and then the output develops at a speed of an explosion. So be extremely careful and protect your eyes. Don't underestimate the small size of the machine. If you get into self-acceleration, then the power will only be limited by the cross-section of the bifilar wire. Don't say then that I didn't warn you. You'll have to do exactly as I'm about to tell you. Did you hear me?
I'm more attentive than ever.
So, let's start with the structure and then we'll move on to the adjusting methods. Look, one arm of the bifilar coil should have a ratio of...
The power has been turned on and off several times today. The fridge has burned down.
Here. That's all for today. Okay. I've done everything as Paul said, so it must work. First thing is modulation. We select the amplitude of the static to the maximum. How fast the amplitude is growing! Unbelievable! That must be enough. Now I'm giving the excitation to the bifilar. Wow, what a success. It really works. But there's too much power, too much excitation of the bifilar. Also, it is necessary to stagger the parallel circuit a bit. The circuit will have to be resoldered. Everything has burned out. The blocking capacitor has been blown to pieces. Paul warned this could happen.
Max, what happened?
I still can't calm down. In the evening, I adjusted the signal parameters, like you had said. Static was just off the scale. I rushed to feed the excitation into the bifilar, and I overdid it a little. The device went into disarray. The blocking capacitor blew up.
I told you, safety first. You can't treat the magnetic field like that. And look at what you did. You applied the current abruptly. Remember, there are other laws in this device. It's not a switch you can flick without consequences. To be honest, I hoped you would not succeed.
But why didn't you want me to succeed?
Max, don't get me wrong. I just don't want you to let the genie out of the bottle and hurt yourself and those around you. By revealing the principle to you, I have taken responsibility for your life. Something tells me you're going to make the same mistakes as the lucky people who build an FFG.
I give you my word, I will be more careful with my experiments.
Okay, let's go. Look at the huge devices Tesla worked with. He was dealing with incomparably higher powers, but managed to live to an old age. But it's not just about safety. You have to learn to keep your mouth shut. Tesla had the misfortune of a lifetime because he told the wrong people too much. As a result, he was not allowed to fulfill his dream in which he wanted to give people free energy. And at the end of his life, they even tried to eliminate him.
Eliminate him?
In the autumn of 1937, he was hit by a car as he was crossing the road at night, taking a walk as usual. This was easy to set up, since Tesla had been walking the same route for years. He received fractured ribs, a lung injury that caused acute pneumonia, which turned chronic and left him bedridden. He died 6 years later of coronary artery thrombosis. Apparently, he never fully recovered.
Of course, Tesla was not of benefit to those who plan to turn energy into commodity. And it is logical why they wanted to silence him. but he was probably too valuable of a figure for them to threaten him openly.
Absolutely right. They tried to teach him to be silent more than once, but Tesla turned out to be prudent enough to patent an FFG openly. When he realized Morgan was going to screw him over, he decided to work for the future. He scattered his secret in separate patents. By combining them, a workable device could be assembled. Such a move made it possible to avoid the patents being badly distorted later on by those who tweaked them to fit the official science.
So, what is the Universal Aether and why has it been hidden from us? Aether is the same secret code as the ancient Vedic concept Akasha, denoting the unified energy information field of the universe. Aether has been known since ancient times. One of the scientists who advanced farther than others in the study of ether was Nikola Tesla. In particular, he studied the electromagnetic phenomena caused by ether. Tesla was engaged not only in theoretical studies of this substance, but also in its practical application. In his research, he came to the conclusion that ether is a transparent substance that fills the entire world. It is an ultralight gas consisting of tiny particles that moves with enormous speed and an infinite flow of radiation. Tesla called them primary solar rays. And here is a modern definition of ether. Ether is an all-permeating universal medium consisting of ultralight elements, possessing inexhaustible reserves of information and energy, and is capable of transmitting energy almost instantaneously over enormous distances. In other words, ether is the source and carrier of all kinds of energy in nature. Tesla invented the synchronous electric motor, the asynchronous generator, introduced multi-phase systems and a huge number of devices operating on alternating current. But this was not his main brainchild. Ether was the central theme of his life, which he was going to study at his gigantic Wardenclyffe Tower device, the construction of which began in 1901. Tesla writes about it in his diary.
On Long Island, near the Shoreham railway station, I bought a plot of 81 hectares and named it Wardenclyffe in honor of James Warden, the owner of the North Shore Industrial Company. The construction of the tower progressed at a fairly rapid pace, despite the complexity of the structure. However, I couldn't complete it within 9 months, and in January 19 had to ask Morgan for an extension. He agreed to give me another 9 months and increased the financing. I was so glad that I changed my mind about Morgan. Yes, he twisted my arms, but he also made concessions. Even in businessmen of this level, something human wakes up when they are faced with projects, like my world system, I thought. I was born naive, and I'll die naive.
It should be explained in more detail who Morgan was. Morgan John Pierpont Sr. was one of the greatest bankers and businessmen of his era, a Freemason. He was a representative of those clan families which rule the world, the so-called super elites, like John Rockefeller, Jacob Rothschild, and others. Morgan Sr. was the founder of the largest modern financing holding company, J.P. Morgan Chase & Company, with a market capitalization of $387 billion and assets under management of $2 trillion. This is how Tesla characterized Morgan in his diary.
Morgan was a predator. He ate everyone who got in his way, he didn't tolerate sharing his profits with anyone, he liked to command and didn't like to negotiate. I was well aware that if he gave money, in return he would demand that he alone would have all the power. The most I could count on when dealing with Morgan would be a position of a technical advisor. I had heard about Morgan's way of doing business. Not only did he ruin his competitors, but also those who were not a threat to him, if they made him angry about something. If Morgan was dissatisfied with the service in a restaurant, he could buy the restaurant he didn't need just so he could throw the entire staff out on the street. When I went to Morgan, I knew that I was going to stick my head in the tiger's mouth. When I was developing the World System project, I had no intention of showing it to Morgan. I wanted to create the world system for the good of humanity, not for the enrichment of the Morgan family. I had a good idea of how things would go with Morgan. In return for the financing, he would demand guarantees, which would bind me hand and foot. A controlling interest in all common companies, a pledge of all patents, etc. And besides, all of this would be so well organized by his lawyers that he could throw me out at any time. I thought all night and part of the morning before I went to see Morgan. Not working, just sitting and thinking, weighing the pros and cons. I knew it was my only chance. And I knew that I couldn't give Morgan full control of the world system. Where the wolf will not pass, the snake will crawl, my father used to say. I decided to show Morgan only part of my project, the part about the world radio communications. I pledged my radio patents to Morgan and agreed that he would receive a 51% stake in our company, which would transmit and receive transatlantic messages. At that moment, I mentally praised myself for my foresight, for the fact that I didn't introduce Morgan to the other, central part of my plan. Once he gained control of the world system, he would become the energy king of the globe and dictate his will to governments and nations.
Tesla was well aware that Morgan's people were among the technical staff during the construction of the tower, assigned by him to monitor where Tesla spends Morgan's money. After the underground part was built, it became clear to these spies that the tower was intended for more than just transmitting radio signals. This is what they reported to Morgan. That is how he found out that Tesla had tricked him. Tesla concealed from Morgan his true purpose for building the tower, which was to transmit power wirelessly across the entire planet. The revelation of the deception enraged Morgan, but he wouldn't have been Morgan if he showed his emotions, so he chose to act as always did, according to the principle revenge is a dish best served cold. Morgan had never forgiven even the slightest disrespect to himself, and here such a deliberate deception was revealed. Moreover, he realized the destructiveness of the Tesla's idea for his financial empire. That development would lead to the destruction of the entire industries, a radical reduction in coal and oil production. The big four world fathers of the modern version of the consumer's format, Morgan, Rockefeller, Warburg and Rothschild, decide to buy up and destroy Tesla's technology, while Tesla himself falls under the hood of the secret services controlled by them. But they didn't stop there. Using his enormous influence, Morgan undermined the trust of the other investors towards the projects of the great inventor by means of the controlled media to spread slander and pour dirt on Tesla and the work of his life, the Wardenclyffe Tower project. And to prevent Tesla from having any followers, the financier started convincing the scientific community of the futility of his ideas. They dealt the main blow to the foundation of Tesla's energy, ether. And that's why there was an order to create a theory that would eradicate the idea of ether. The executors were found in the World Banking Center, Bern, where the Olympia Academy Scientific Circle was created and headed at the time by the unknown and unemployed Albert Einstein. As a result of his activity and the worldwide propaganda of the theory of relativity, the Congress of Society of German Natural Scientists and Physicians in Germany in 1920 was held. At this Congress, the notion of ether was officially abolished. This was a diversion in science, preventing the discovery of free energy of ether. Since then, humankind has been forced to exist within the frames of hydrocarbon energy. As a consequence, we see a global destruction of ecology.
We know that energy is the basis of economy production, but essentially the possibilities of existing theories all around us. But mainstream science artificially maintains the status quo exclusively in the interest of those who finance their work. And that is why scientific development is being limited today. by my opinion. All of us, as a society and as individuals, have a great responsibility towards the present and the future. As a long-time researcher of Tesla's heritage and especially ancient Vedic knowledge, I am absolutely sure that the future of civilization lies in the Tesla's ether technologies. Science and spirituality is the right path to follow, and it is exactly the one we left 120 years ago and to which we should return if we want to move on. We have to back to Tesla ideas.
Tesla realized that he had initially started doing business with the wrong people, and subsequently he said,
I am well aware that many of the ranks of the military leadership receive royalties from the military industry. It benefits them more to make as many weapons, uniforms, etc., as possible. They benefit from making the war last as long as possible. My device will deprive them of profits. I no longer toil for the present, I toil for the future. The ideal world as I see it is a world without famine, wars, or wires.
Did you know that Tesla's most significant work on ether technology is classified? What you can see in the public domain is not everything he actually did.
For years now, guys on forums have been discussing and trying to build devices using his patents. But nothing that goes beyond the known physics can be found in them. It feels as if his work has been edited and adopted to the official science.
Of course, otherwise everyone would have an FFG today. Take the Wardenclyffe Tower project. Well, isn't that funny? They're trying to sell us a cheap fiction story that Tesla wanted to transmit energy through the conductivity of the upper atmosphere, but they don't focus on the underground part of the tower. That's where the explanation should have been looked for.
Paul, what do you think about the connection between Tesla and Tunguska disaster?
My answer would be a bit vague. One of his areas of interest was free transmission of energy over long distances in the form of toroidal formations. This is not an electromagnetic or sound wave. Science denies the possibility of such a transmission method, but there are scientists who understand what it is.
Ether is the medium that fills the entire space, to put it simply. And in this medium, all interactions are carried out and information is transmitted through it. They say that information is transmitted by electromagnetic and other fields. And what is a field? It is some variable way, and the wave arises necessarily in some kind of medium, so then it really exists. And therefore it turns out that the ether must exist. Tesla was a passionate proponent of the ether, and he first came to it practically. He watched a smoker create rings of smoke. What's a ring? Notice it vibrates, it twists and crawls, but it doesn't disintegrate. The smoke doesn't just dissipate. Imagine how interesting. It keeps a heap and is spinning at the same time. Kind of a torus that spins and it goes. Then somewhere in the distance it dissipates. Later on, he did an experiment by blowing these rings in the water. He took a vessel with an ink solution and heat it, and through the hole of colored ring would come out, and it would come out and crawl and break when it got to the end of the top. And then it hit him. Genius as he was, that's actually ball lightning. Why ball lightning doesn't disappear like normal lightning? You know, a spark hitting gone at once a short circuit, but the ball lightning exists and is living. After it comes somewhere, it explodes, and no one knows when. It could go through a glass and nothing happens, but suddenly, somewhere, an incomprehensible obstacle stops it and it crushes. Then he suggested that all the movements of these vortex formations must occur in a medium. And why is ball lightning electric? These rotating toric gathers electrons, that is, they get charged. They get charged and start glowing. And you get this ball lightning running around. Then he came up with the following. It is possible to create these rings from other types of fields, including invisible field or purely electric field. It wouldn't necessarily be ball lightning, and you can send it out. And since it is energy, it goes through space and is consumed somewhere else. It is a wireless transmission through the ether. Then he also thought, what if this thing was sent to the moon? When it reaches the moon, and the moon has its own electric field shrouding it, just like the Earth has its own magnetic and electric field, it's pushed away from that field and returns to the Earth. Then again, it's pushed away from the Earth, and the energy starts pumping on. When it starts to come back and forth, the energy is amplified. And this is exactly the mechanism by which lasers work. Self-excitation and amplification of the initial light fluxes take place. Tesla was at the origin of the laser. He understood what this promises for humankind. If such gigantic energy is transmitted at a distance, and then selectively neutralize it there will be a huge explosion. There is a version, very viable, that the Tunguska event was an experiment by Tesla, that he chose this place to test the work of these vortex formation operating in the ether.
Hooray! The output stage and check the pulsation. If it's stable, that's it. I can power up my home and make the next, more powerful version. That'll cut our utility bills in half. Yes, we will have to pay a little to avoid suspicion. Second point, be sure to share the scheme, otherwise the risk of keeping it in just one place is too great. That place becomes unsafe.
Max, I'm urgently leaving today for a business trip. I won't be back for a long time. Take me to the airport in an hour.
Everything from us, breakthrough. Facts, bias, twisted, forgotten what to treasury. Protected because we're in the 19th century. The science background was pretty void. Ether for use, no oil. That's as a breakthrough, such a big deal. Given this fact, this is all real. Do you think it's all a dream? And why are they hiding the stuff? Although surprised faces seen, we still don't know much. and at the same and completely silent. Recognized violently seems like that. As the change world on all the sides. Why dogs are hidden, who hides them? Someone's stolen the time for the mankind's rushing into words. Exalted free energy, the rhythm of hearts. Without CS, gonna pray to Mars. Our technology so mean for light. Each of us wanted to save his life. Check out the aircraft, luckily one. Behold the artifacts, human giant. Free energy for us. Energy, free energy, free energy. Us. Free energy, for us. Energy, for us.
Paul, I can't express how grateful I am to you. I still can't believe it's working. It took several sleepless nights to stabilize the operation of the device. By a small looseness of the circuit, it was possible to prevent overclocking and going out of control. I replaced the blocking capacitor with a good quality film. It's barely warm now.
Well done. You are really quick on the uptake. Persistence has made your dream come true.
I've got one question for you, and I guess I know your answer.
Let me guess. You now want to put the principle online, right?
Yes, I just can't watch people suffer like that, trying to make ends meet under the current pressure from the elites. I want to at least help ease the hardships of an ordinary person, make him less dependent.
Max, you've stumbled upon a force that has halted the development of all humankind for the whole 90 years. Since the 1920s, the scientific understanding of the structure of matter has not advanced a single bit. Do you think it's a coincidence? Someone has deliberately hindered the process. Be vigilant. These people don't have any moral values, and your life isn't worth anything at all to them. If you ask me, I strongly disapprove of your noble aspirations. Moreover, many people before you who wanted to spread information and ready-made devices ended up very badly. These are not isolated cases.
Ultimately, nothing would have happened without Paul. I have no right to take charge of the principle without his consent. But it is so hard to keep quiet when the guys on the forum spend years of their lives searching while you have a complete recipe. No one forbids talking using hints without revealing everything completely. That's the way I'll do it. I'll post a general description on one forum without any details. Seems like the hints alone are not enough. No one understood anything from my description. And the topic is, as usual, swept under the rug. It's actually understandable. Here we need specifics with the scheme, construction and certain settings. The guys are already so worn out looking for something new that they are simply skeptical and take the description of the setup as my personal fantasy. There were plenty of others out there. So yes, it makes sense to ask the question, did you get a rise yourself? Should I say yes? Right, did I have a working FFG? No, I shouldn't draw too much attention to myself. I'm not gonna answer that one yet. Okay, what's going on with my personal messages? One message from some Slavic. Hello, you have given a terrific description of the device. I almost got the principle now, but missing a few moments for the whole picture. Could you help clarify them? Why not? From the whole forum, only one person responded and asked for help. So I guess I should respond. After all, Paul helped me in the same situation. Vyacheslav, good afternoon. Thank you for your quick response. I didn't hope for an answer. This topic is closed now. Everyone keeps it to themselves on the forum. Yeah, no one seems to have understood my description. How is it possible not to understand? Your post is a masterpiece. How did you manage to get the statics work? A friend told me how to do the removal properly. Tell him he's a genius. His principle is stunningly elegant. It's an engineering perfection. Thank you, I will. Where did you get stuck? On the removal. What to do next with the static? I've used a lot of coils, but nothing works. Yeah, coils won't help. You need a different approach. There's a diagram with a detailed description of the settings. But I've got a condition. No one must know that it is from me. Deal? Understood. Your secret is safe with me. You have my word. Okay, here's the file.
Only our ignorance makes us use fossil fuels. Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, 1928.
Almost all scientists who obtained significant results, the use of which contradicted the interests of the energy monopolists, were threatened, bribed, persecuted, and even physically destroyed. Here are just a few examples. Gerard Renault, a famous French physicist, built a machine in his laboratory in Grenoble in 1926 that worked on self-power. This discovery, like many similar to it, was made by accident. Renault said, in fact, the machine is powered by simple electricity, but it is electricity from the air. If we put such technology into practice, we could transform our Earth into a paradise within just a few short years. The French Academy of Sciences demanded that Renault come to Paris to demonstrate his invention. He agreed and arrived in the capital with his assistant, where he set up the device in an experimental theater. Shortly before the demonstration, he wanted to explain how it worked. His assistant was present for the demonstration. Suddenly, there was a massive explosion. The flames were so violent that they burst through the doors and windows of the room. The device was instantly turned into a heap of rubble. Both Renault and his assistant died in the explosion, taking the secret of their invention to the grave. American physicist Lester Hendershot created generators with no visible source of energy, after which he was accused of quackery. Lester took the public's reaction into account, and by 1960, in addition to 2 new generators, he also produced 56 pages of documentation, explaining to humanitarians that the Earth is a giant magnet, capable of delivering hundreds of billions of volts to humanity every day. Lester sold his invention for $25,000 to a large corporation, whose name he never disclosed until the day he died. The condition of the deal was that he wouldn't build a single similar device for the next 20 years. As his invention could have become a serious threat to the multi-million-dollar industry. That's when he disappeared from the limelight. On April 19, 1961, Hendershot was found dead in his house. According to the official version, it was impossible to say whether or not it was suicide because no one has ever investigated the cause of death, just like in the case of death of other inventors engaged in the production of free energy. Stefan Marinov, a famous physicist, director of the Institute of Fundamental Physics from Austria, is also on the list of scientists who suffered a tragic fate. In order to study the Testatica generator, he joined the Methernitha community in Switzerland and even became a member of its board. His goal was to discover how the generator worked. However, he was the only one to vote for its declassification, while all other members of the board were against it, arguing their decision that humanity was not ready yet to perceive this discovery. Marinov believed that the key to the mystery of Testatica was the magnetic scalar field discovered by Nikolaev from Tomsk. Based on this field, he developed a new type of electric motor called Siberian Kolya in honor of Nikolaev. Any much longer and he would have revealed the secret of Testatica, but it never happened, or, to be more precise, someone prevented it from happening. On July 15, 1997, Professor Stefan Marinov died after being thrown out of the window of the university library in the center of Graz by an unknown. The assailant was never found, and the case was ultimately closed, as it happened before in cases involving attacks on the lives of inventors working outside the orthodox scientific concepts. In 1990, Floyd Sweet introduced the vacuum triode amplifier. This device consists of 2 ferrite magnets and 3 coreless coils, which can be started by a 9-volt battery. It powers itself, almost like an auto generator, and produces 1 kWh of energy, similar to electrical energy. Why not electrical, but similar to it, can be seen from the following properties. When the output wires are short-circuited, they don't heat up, but rather become covered with frost. And when you get hit by the current, you get a frostbite, not a burn. Gravitational anomalies were also observed when the generator was running. Floyd was threatened many times, implying that accidents sometimes happen to people who defy the wishes of those in power. Floyd Sweet died of a heart attack in 1995. The inventor's widow entrusted Floyd's archives to a famous automobile concern, and since then, their fate is unknown. A Ukrainian Andriy Slobodian was among those who tried to create a working fuel-free generator. The most famous of the devices proposed by the inventor is a magnetic engine generator operating on bifilar coils. It powered itself. Finding no support in his homeland, Slobodian moved to Korea. He died under strange circumstances in late August of 2020. It happened in Seoul, where he had a laboratory and a joint company with the Koreans called Infinity Sav. According to the official version, he suffocated from smoke when the air conditioner in his hotel room caught fire. Andriy's team was able to prepare several prototypes of devices for commercial production and sale, but that seemed to be the end of it.
I personally had a meeting with Andrew Slobodian in South Korea. He's from Ukraine, although he graduated from Bauman University here, and I talked to him and I saw his devices. I was just amazed, of course, at what he did. Of course, Andrew Slobodian is a genius. He is a genius of the same rank as Tesla, Nikola Tesla, right? And it is natural that such a person should be supported in every possible way at the state level. But, however, it happened the way it happened. After he charged the Tesla car, he charged it in 13 hours with that generator, which he had demonstrated to me personally, and I saw it all. And after that, literally, in 2-3 weeks, the misfortune happened. As you know, he died. Officially, it is believed that he suffocated in a fire, but somehow I personally have doubts about how he died.
In fact, from the very beginning, there was nothing but trouble. So when I look at the story today, I ask myself if I would do it again. We were insulted. Scientists, physicists, and our partners were insulted. I can tell you today that our research, our technology was no longer published in Germany. There was a so-called public ban for many years. Can you imagine that? Article 5, Section 5, Paragraph 3, Basic Law. There are questions, and I tell everyone about it. I had goosebumps when we're trying to publish research on the topics we are exploring today. It was just rejected. Looking back, I must say that it was complete madness. And after that, a huge stream of dirt poured on us. There was no Nobel Prize or anything like that at the time. But today, I have to say that everything was right. I mean, all the difficulties that have arisen over the years, block accounts, accusations, and denunciations, it's just unbelievable, isn't it?
This is not a complete list of scientists who could have changed the future of all humankind. Unfortunately, unique inventions and technologies have disappeared without a trace or are kept in someone's vaults. while the inventors themselves sometimes passed away under mysterious circumstances. What many cases have in common is that the investigation was either never conducted or never given any results, and even if it did, the result was never disclosed to the public. But it was not only the inventors trying to extract energy from ether who were eliminated, but also those who stood in the way of hydrocarbon energy. Renowned inventors like Diesel, Schauberger, Filimonenko, Meyer, Clem, and many others were among them.
Where to?
We've already arrived. And you now listen carefully. A friend of mine gave us an interesting scheme. So bear in mind, if you keep working on your device, you'll be done too. For good.
Did you get it?
They took away my phone, smashed all our appliances, took away your device and said, "They'd kill me if you keep doing this." I told you.
Well, minus the TV, computer, phone. You know, I'm gonna go and work a bit more.
Hello?
Hello, is this Vera? Yes, I'd like to come over and get to know the Creative Society project a little better. Oh, so... I can come over right now. Right, thank you, I'm on my way. And so, friends, in the end I realized that in the current format, it's impossible to give people freedom from the energy news. We need to change the system itself.
And we already have a way out. It is the Creative Society. Then all the advanced technology will be available to all humankind.
Yes, you were talking about it when you were in the car. Tell us more about it.
Creative society is a world where everything serves to improve your life. Every minute. In the creative society, you will have access to meta replicators to create clothes and food for free. Free education anywhere in the world. Spacious, free housing by birthright. In the creative society, you will have access to free, high-quality healthcare, body regeneration capsule in every home. Safe transport and a unified emergency service everywhere. You are eligible for an unconditional basic income of $10,000 a month. Here, you will become really free. Work 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. Paid vacation, 2 months a year. Free journeys around the world. Interesting and busy life. In the creative society, all of this will be available to every person.